Share screen. And play. There we are. All right, thanks for joining us today, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about unrepresented buyers. Unrepresented buyers, but remember, everything's so situational. So always talk to Debbie or myself, schedule some time if you want to go over the exact situation you're in. So we're going to go over some things that you're going to come across, you could come across, but I like to hear the whole story before I tell people, where a
Yeah.
buyer came from. Did they call you? Do you know them from previously? Do wherever, or we're not go over too much, but a dual agency, but that's the whole point of unrepresented buyers. Now you're not a dual agent. But we'll go over some things, but remember, always reach out to us and we'll go over with you fresh and go over the exact situation you're in. So, but we'll jump right into it. Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, this is a fun topic because I feel a lot of people are confused now that we have all of these different rules and stuff. So, um, this part that we're going to talk about is the listing appointment conversation. So, this is conversation that you're going to have with your seller, right?
Mhm.
About the unrepresented buyers because they've always been around. We all know that. It's just we'd never called them the unrepresented buyer before. Everybody was just a buyer, right? Well, now we know that they're unrepresented because we don't have a contract with them and they don't have a contract with someone else. That's an unrepresented buyer, right? They don't have an exclusive buyer's agency agreement with a different agent and they don't have one with you. That's an unrepresented buyer, correct?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
So we want to make sure that we're educating our sellers on the reasons why on your listing agreement you may be charging extra for unrepresented buyers. We're not going to get into how much you're going to charge or anything like that because that's going to be negotiable between you and the seller. And if you want to have some tips about that, that's where you're going to talk to us privately, right?
Exactly.
This
That's
is just general.
yeah, everything is negotiable and I say this at least once a day to an agent, said the best thing about all the changes is now it's out there and open. Everything's negotiable, even this topic.
Hmm.
But because everything's negotiable doesn't mean everything's cheaper or lower.
That's true.
Somebody's like, oh my God, everything's negotiable. That means I'm going to make less money. I'm like, no, we have agents making more money per deal because they're negotiating a higher commission. That's up to you to decide, but everything is negotiable on that. So go ahead. Sorry, just want to jump in on.
No, that's absolutely true because you do have additional workload when you have an unrepresented buyer, right? If that buyer comes to you in your open house, you can show them the house, right? If
Right.
that buyer comes to you directly from your sign or from Zillow or from realtor.com or whatever, you can show them the house. You're just going to have them sign the unrepresented buyer agreement. And that's what you're telling your seller. I'm going to have them sign this agreement. I will show them the house. I'm not going to deny any buyer from seeing the house. Um, but if I have to be involved on both sides, it's going to be additional workload. And I also want to let you know that sometimes the deals do more than likely fall apart because that buyer doesn't have representation. They don't have someone advocating for them. They have to make their own decisions, right? But we have to make sure that we're following agency obligations as well. We do have to present all the offers, including those offers, to our seller. We have to remember about fair housing risks. So we don't want to be construed as discriminating towards anyone, right? An unrepresented buyer as well. And then we also have to talk about compensation with our sellers, which is on your exclusive right to sell here at Homestar. We do have a section about it so that you can talk to them freely about it. Okay.
Right. And not, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun with other slides, but one of the things I remind agents is sometimes the agent, when they're talking this topic with the seller, going through the listing agreement and seeing that charge or whatever that they want to for unrepresented buyers, always think of the easiest slam dunk unrepresented buyer. Makes a call. You show it tonight. They want to write an offer and you present it and everything gets approved and it's done, and then it's an easy, transaction to the end, and no problems. I say you got to think of the other thing. What happens if 20 different people are calling on your sign or coming 20 people walk into your open house without an agent and all of them want to write offers and all of them want to come back a second time and now you are managing multiple offers on multiple unrepresented buyers. Should you be compensated for all that extra work? Because if it wasn't for if they all had they had 28 buyers, they all had their own agents, it's a lot less work for you. You don't have to show the property all of them. You don't have to do a second showing. You don't have to write 20 different contracts. So they go, and then usually the light goes, oh yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
It's to
Yeah.
protect your time. You're not doing all of this extra work for free, if unless you want to. Some agents are like, I don't mind to. That's you're negotiating that. But think of all of those things that you're doing that and we get I get calls and Debbie, you get these calls too. Like people are like, I got these people from out of town or this out of state investor or this out of country person I'm spending all this time talking with them. They don't have an agent. Well, if you have that in the listing agreement, at least you're going to get compensated if they do buy.
Yeah.
So, but should I jump to the next slide?
Sure.
Good,
Yep.
good.
So duties to the buyer. So we do have duties to the buyer, right? Even though they're unrepresented. And the first thing on the top of the list is to remind the buyer multiple times throughout the transaction that you are representing the seller and to avoid any perception of dual agency. This doesn't, and we are not talking about dual agency today. We are talking about buyers who have no agent and no relationship to you at all. Okay.
Yeah, I like
Um,
to use the word you're working for the buyer. You don't represent their best interest. So a lot of agents don't get that. Like, well, do I representing an agency is looking out for their best interest. So like when you represent the seller and you're still work for the buyer, your duty is to the seller to get them the highest and best terms for them. And
yes.
your job is to see what you can do to get this unrepresented buyer up higher or in a better terms for your seller. You're not looking out for their best interest. I mean, you're not trying to do anything unethical or unprofessional, but you have to work with your seller to figure out how to get this buyer, better terms for your seller. If
Yes.
so, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. The second one is use the unrepresented buyer agreement. If you're not sure what that is, please contact me right away because we have had these now for quite a while. And I do try and talk to as many people as possible about it because this is your lifeline. Have these at your open house. When you have an open house, have a stack of them there. Have a stack of purchase agreements there. Have buyer agency agreements there because maybe that buyer does not want to buy this house, but they might want to buy a different house. See if you can get them under contract that way, right? Just because they don't want to buy that house doesn't mean you can't sell them another house. So have all of your paperwork with you when you're doing these things so that you can jump right in. It shows you're prepared and you're ready for any kind of situation, which is also going to be a benefit to your seller, by the way, too, right?
Yep.
Facilitate property access with safety protocols. Get those photo IDs and pre-approvals and such if they're going to be doing an offer, right? You want to make sure that you know who you are talking to always, whether it's your buyer that's going to sign a contract with you or an unrepresented one. You want to know who they are. It's very, very important, especially these days. And use your forewarn if you need to. If you don't know what forewarn is, it's an app that your board pays for, and you can download it on your phone and you can use it to uh, basically do a background check on anyone. You have to use it for real estate, don't use it for personal issues and stuff, but it's there for you to use to keep you safe, right?
Yes.
Um, you want to make sure that you're presenting all of the transaction forms. You're not going to guide them, but you are going to fill them out or help them fill them out together, right? But you're not going to give them, if he says, well, what should I offer on this house? That's going to be up to them. right? You're not going to give them a comparable market analysis. Remember, your loyalty is to your seller, correct?
Exactly.
But you got to make sure you get all of the documents signed, right, and filled
Yes.
out. Attend the inspections, attend the appraisal. All of if there's repairs that have to be made, you're going to have to guide them into making sure the repairs get done. This is why you need to be paid, guys, because you are going to be doing this stuff, right?
Right. Exactly. And I was just going to jump in and document all communication. I really try to get agents to do a lot of emails back and forth with the buyers, unrepresented buyers, and keep it to a minimum. You're not supposed to be writing paragraphs and explaining and brainstorming ideas. It should be, here's your documents, sign them.
Very good.
Because
Yes.
you don't represent them. You're just working for them. You're facilitating the transaction. There really shouldn't be any long drawn out conversations or that. That's when you need an agent, like usually when you're discussing things or whatever. So it's basically getting documents signed, scheduling appointments for things, and really keeping it to the absolute minimum to of discussions and things. Because the more you discuss with people, might get them to that feel that, oh, you are help representing me or being a dual agent because you went over and above of just being that facilitator. So be concerned about that when you catch yourself talking too much and or putting too much in emails and texts.
Yes, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. The document all communications. You should do this for every person that you work with, but you definitely want to make sure that you're doing this with the buyers because sometimes uh, if they don't get the house, if they don't get this one and the offer doesn't get accepted and such, they get butthurt
Yep.
and they say, "Oh, you didn't do a good job for me. You were supposed to represent me, this, that, and the other." And we know this because we're going through this right now with someone else, right? But as long as you are continuously telling them that you represent the seller and you don't represent them, that you're just here to work with them, um, and do what Tony said, talking at a bare minimum, emailing at a bare minimum, but make sure that you are so that you're not ignoring them.
Exactly. Next slide.
hmm Here's some challenges now. Increased risk of liability. Of course, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but you want to make sure that you're not telling seller secrets to the buyer. However, anything the buyer does tell you, you can tell the seller. And that does say that on our buyers, unrepresented buyers agreement. So you want to make sure you're clear and transparent about that. Um, it's going to take more time and more effort, which Tony also alluded to, and you might have multiple ones that you're dealing with, right? Make
No.
sure you are practicing your fair housing and that no one can come back at you and tell you and say that you were biased or prejudiced against them. Remain ethical and protect your seller.
Yeah, one
Um,
thing I want to jump in is that your seller could require this. Like we had just had an agent last week, had a buyer that called unrepresented buyer. He knew he wanted to be an unrepresented buyer. He's done it before. We sent him the unrepresented buyer form, and he refused to sign it. And the agent called back, said, "What can I do?" I said, "Well, explain to your seller that this protects them too against them. So go through it with the seller. The seller can require the buyer to sign it as part of their deal. It's part of, everything's negotiable. A seller could ask the buyer to do anything. The buyer could ask the seller to do anything to come, but the seller, I would say, you make it requirements because this protects all of us. If he doesn't sign it, then he doesn't have a deal. And I never followed up with the agent. I don't think the buyer ever came back, or they would have called me. But a seller, I wanted to give you that example of that because I recommend to our sellers if you have a buyer, unrepresented buyer that doesn't want to sign it, I don't know why, because it doesn't obligate anything. It just releases the liability against us and the seller. And I would be very nervous and for one of our sellers or us to get involved with that type of person that doesn't want to release us of liability on that. So sorry, just want to
yeah,
jump in on that.
that's very good point right there. Because there are these buyers out here who feel like they're going to try and skirt the system, even though it is a law in Ohio now to have exclusive buyers agency agreements. That's why we have the unrepresented buyer agreement, because you got to have something in play.
Right.
Either they're going to work with you or they're definitely not working with you, right? So
Exactly.
we need
Yep.
to know. Best practices would be recommend buyer representation. Are you sure you don't want to have representation? My loyalty is to the seller for this particular house, but I can get another agent in our office to represent you. Always give them options, okay? Because they might not know that they could do something like that. Clearly communicate your agency roles. Again, I represent the seller. My loyalty is to the seller, but I will help you. Here are the documents that you need to sign. Uh, what are we putting on the purchase agreement? You have to make your own decisions, kind of thing.
Right.
Provide information without giving advice. So that's just your short and sweet answers that Tony said. Document everything and take preemptive measures in the listing agreement by having that conversation with your seller at the time that you're signing your listing agreement. Anything that you can think of that I missed on here?
No, that's perfect. No, that's good.
We really, really want to make sure that you guys are more comfortable dealing with the unrepresented buyers. And next week, we're going to talk about working with your buyers, but this one is about the unrepresented ones. You can find lots of different tips and tricks on their Century 21 University. They now have script karaoke. This is a copy of what it looks like. So when you click into your script library, there's going to be a script karaoke one, and this is how to talk about your sphere of influence. And you're basically talking to your phone like you're going to do this on your phone. So all of you that I tell practice your scripts and they're like, I don't know, have anyone to practice with. Use your phone. Now you can do it like this, karaoke. I thought
That's
this was
awesome.
pretty cool. They just initiated this like a month ago, so it's pretty neat.
That's cool.
Yeah. Uh, it's coming up to be National Watermelon Day on August 3rd. So you can do a little thing like this that clients like you are one in a melon, and maybe get those little individual melons if you want to give those things to your sphere of influence or even to your friends and coworkers and stuff like that. But there's a little thing to get your marketing juices
I like
flowing,
it.
so to speak, with
Right.
the watermelon,
That's nice.
right? And then we do have some CEU coming up. We have John Dewey doing civil rights on the 17th. That one I think is a um, in-person class. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in person.
That
Yeah.
one I think is in. Yeah. The 5 listing secrets to impress sellers with Mike Ferrante. That one's going to be a Zoom. Civil rights and fair housing with Hush on August 7th is also going to be a Zoom. And why agents need to know how mortgages are made. If you're not sure how the lending process goes, go to that class because he's a great teacher. Anyone who's been to Hush's classes knows that. And he's going to tell you exactly what you need to know. Everybody needs to know this stuff. Like you need, and that's why you took those classes when you went to real estate school, right? Because we need to know the ins and outs of what the other people are doing just in case someone asks us questions. We are not mortgage loan officers, so we're not going to practice that way, but you need to know why or how the process works when you're
Exactly.
dealing with mortgages and financing and stuff.
Good stuff. All right.
Yeah.
Well, unrepresented buyers. I think there's more of them than there used to be before. So because buyers know now that they have to sign a buyer agreement, so some refuse to do it, so they want to just represent themselves. But so when you have these things on your listings, get a hold of Debbie or myself. We're happy to go over to the situation with you and just make sure you're safe and doing things correctly. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye bye.